Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of the Unlaced podcast. I can't thank you enough for last year, 2022. What a big year it was. We grew phenomenally. We made the Spotify podcast charts, which was amazing. Finally, we got there, Braden. I don't know why it took so long. We're starting to question ourselves, but thank you guys for all your support. If you are new here, please give us a like and subscribe. And if you've come back, as I always say, I love you. Now, a big part of this year is going to be talking to a range of different sports like we always do, but also we want to incorporate some more female sports. And probably one of the hardest podcasts to jag has been this lovely lady here because she is so busy and so highly regarded in her field. But I'm very happy to finally have Collingwood AFLW player Sabrina Fredericks on the show.
God,
is that embarrassing? Did I embarrass you?
This is a long time coming, but I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I want to make sure I'm here, I'm present, I'm not busy. I do have a lot on. All my friends would laugh because I am really hard to get hold of. But once you have me, I'm fully here.
Yeah, well, to be fair, in your defense, you were about to become a parent.
Yes.
So then your partner was pregnant. So it was kind of like, I mean, it was a legitimate excuse. I was like, I can't really curb that. And it's like, fuck, I actually have to wait like 9 months.
No, yeah, actually.
Maybe even a bit longer because those initial weeks after you need the support as well. But
good to be here anyway.
Yeah, good to be. How are you anyway? How's life?
Very good, very busy, but I love it that way. Football, family, business, like lots going on.
What are you doing business?
Yeah, well, at the moment, long story, but me and my brother in business, we've been doing a lot of marketing separately for so long. We're intertwined in the space. My background's his is in web analytics and production. So kind of got to a point where we're like, we're doing our own thing. Like, why don't we just come together? And I know lots of people say don't get into business with family, but I think we did a lot of our fighting in the younger ages.
Okay, so it's nice and calm.
It's very calm now, and we've got over our immaturity, and so now we're business partners, and it's actually a really cool thing to share it with a family member. So we're in that space now. We're probably 6 months in terms of being combined.
Oh wow!
And it's a lot. It's good.
So a business is outsourcing you and your brother to come in and like create marketing strategies or help promote their work?
Yeah. So we're focusing on sort of mid to upper tier businesses, but like we're open to speaking to anyone.
Wow.
But my brother, he's worked for Lexus, Grilled, like he's worked on really big campaigns. And so for us, it's sort of just how can we provide that high level service, but give it to the people that may not have the budget like Lexus can sort of afford. So we're trying to bridge the gap there. And like I'm a huge people person too. So the more conversations I have with people, I love it. So I sort of say I'm more of like the people relations, client relations person. I love a good chat. Whereas my brother's more of like the technical in the background, which is nice because it works.
Yeah, you keep me guessing, man. You just do so many different things.
It's good though. I love it.
Because I always wonder with the AFLW, and obviously you're quite a high profile player, and we'll go into that. But the challenge is the seasons are really short.
Yeah.
Well, right now anyway, I think they're like 10 rounds.
Yeah.
If you don't make finals or whatever. So that leaves a lot of time.
Yeah.
To do stuff.
I mean, it's such a weird one because with AFLW, I mean, as an athlete, you're expected to be performing. Keep your body in check all year round. So I think as a whole, you're a full-time athlete because you can't really let yourself go. But in terms of like mental bandwidth, you can't always be focusing on football when we're only playing 10 games. And I'm sure clubs would love for us to be thinking about that all year round, but it's definitely not at a point where I personally think it's worth it at the moment. And who knows if it will even get to that in my career span. I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
I think it will one day, whether it does in that time frame.
Yeah, who knows?
You've played for so long that I thought you were older than what you were.
I think, I started when I was 18.
What are you? 20?
I'm 26.
Yeah, that fried my brain when I saw that the other day. I was like, because I've known you for a couple of years. I'm like, I thought you were like my age.
Yeah, because I started so early, I think. And because I think also when I started at Brisbane, I was sort of thrown into that like face of the club thing at such a young age. Like looking back now, I had no idea. Like I thought I knew everything, like every 18, 19-year-old thinks. But there was so much to learn. And In a weird way, it was kind of nice to start so young, because I feel like now when I'm 26, I feel like I know myself so well. I know what works for me, what doesn't. I feel like I'm actually now like coming into my I guess my prime years of knowing how to operate, which is kind of nice, because I feel like the best is to come. Like I can't wait for the next few seasons personally, rather than
the past.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That means you're kind of like got a 35-year-old head in a 26-year-old body from an AFL. Like when you start to know your body, especially at that age and like what it needs, that's like, that takes people like 10 years.
Yeah, it does.
Which is crazy.
Especially, it's hard in elite sport too, because normally you don't even get that long.
Yeah.
Like clubs
the average is, I can imagine, I think the average in AFL is 4 years.
Yeah.
Like AFLW will probably be less.
Exactly.
Maybe.
And it's tough. I think I've been in a unique circumstance that I've always had that reality of, this could end tomorrow, so let's make the most of it now, but also like how can I make an impact here and now that it leaves a good mark when I'm gone with the game. So it's sort of leaving a legacy. Like for me, it's like, yes, I'm playing football and I love the sport so much, but it's very much foundational stuff for the long term for the game, because I have a daughter now. Like if she wanted to be a professional footballer, I'm thinking more about that than I am about myself in the sport. And I think that's just knowing where I am, like time and a place right now, if that makes sense.
Correct, yeah. Do you feel like with a lot of the AFLW players on that sort of mindset where it seems like with AFLW players, because of where the game was at and where it's going, or where it is now and where it's going, it seems like more of a movement. Like everyone's playing a bit more of an unselfish role to grow the games in order for the future to get bigger. Whereas obviously in the AFL, you're completely selfish because the business could spin you out and chuck you out straight away. Yeah. Whereas you guys like building something for girls of the future. Does it feel like that? Yeah,
I think mainly for probably the ones around my age and older. I think if you are 18, 19, like full-time football is definitely probably going to be in your career span. So I think there's definitely a mindset between the players around my age and up where it's like, yeah, we may not get there, but like, let's make the most of it now, and let's make sure that the foundations, like things like CBA and resourcing and all that sort of stuff is really ingrained early on, and no mistakes are made at the beginning, so then these players can benefit. And it is hard because we're all so competitive. Like, of course, we would love to be paid full time to compete at a high level right now. Like, I'm sure a majority of us would rather be focusing on just the sport, like the men do. But I think we also have that reality and realistic mentality on knowing that it's just not the right time right now, and we have to make the sport better and make sure that whoever's coming through doesn't have to go through what we went through. They can just focus on their craft and they can just get better at the game, and they don't have to worry about, if a trainer's going to turn up to treat them, if that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think also with that, when you get full commitment, the performance of the game goes up tremendously. Like if the men played only 10 games a year, we wouldn't have the quality that we see today. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also think, how do you, because you mentioned that obviously you can't fully let yourself go.
Yeah.
But like, do you guys do so much training to cover a gap as a team, or do you have this massive layoff that's reliant on Sabrina to like, you got to stay in shape and do it yourself?
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, we finished in the November, and we probably won't pick up pre-season till just after Easter. So that's like 5 months.
That's half a year almost.
Yeah, but like the clubs still expect you to check in and and also we're competitors. Like we're not going to be like, okay, for 5 months we're not going to do anything.
No, of course.
Because that actually leaves us
in the worst.
Exactly, position to then start around pre-season. So it's sort of like you have to be internally motivated to like keep yourself in shape. It's sort of like Olympians in a way. There are some Olympians that get paid next to nothing to compete every 4 years, and they have to internally motivate themselves. Like, yes, I'm sure being an Olympian is like a massive achievement and a massive motivation, but it's similar in the sense that there's a period of time where it's sort of up to you. It's your own decision. You don't really have to commit if you don't want to. But I think competitors know that we're actually worse off if we treat this part-time than because the clubs, they want us to have our break, but it's like, You can't.
Yeah, it's a
if
big
you
break.
didn't touch a footy for 5 months, you'd be terrible.
Yeah, you're a baby giraffe when you come back.
Exactly. So, and you can't do that every single time, you know? So I think it's finding that balance, but I find honestly it's more expectation that I think is our problem at the moment. It's like we're expected to perform at the level that these guys are playing at. But like we're not putting in as much time and effort into our craft. We don't. And it's not even to do with the pay. It's just to do with the time on the craft. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting scenario, and I hope that it gets weaned out over the next couple of years. But it's for me right now, it's like football is definitely one of the priorities, but it's definitely not my top priority.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
If it's only 10 games a year.
Yeah.
Like if you don't make finals. Is that going to change any in the coming like seasons? Is there like talk about it?
I mean, CBA is still being discussed. So
it's ridiculous. I feel like honestly for me, this is not a joke. When I play professional sport, my first 10 games were not my best games.
Yeah.
My next 10 and the 20 after that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, fuck. Like as soon as you get going, it's like, all right, girls, yeah, that's
finished.
it. Yeah, that's unfair.
Yeah. But I think that that's probably why, like, sometimes clubs expect you to come into preseason in a certain nick because it's almost like we're not using preseason for fitness stuff. We're actually using preseason to get like high reps of almost game-like because we're almost using that time as if they were a part of a front of end of a season. And it's like, it's a completely different, it's a different approach. And I think that every club's got their own way of dealing with it. But I think that as long as the individual athlete is okay with what they're putting in, I think that's the main thing. Because at the moment, it's got to be self-managed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've always admired individual athletes because of the things you were saying. Like even Morgan Mitchell, we had her on here and she spoke about how she cops a lot of flack for pushing out on her social media, like all her brand partnerships and ambassador stuff and not like on the track. Yeah, and it's like, this is how I make money. Because it's like, I don't make any money. Like we have two main competitions, like Com Games, Olympic Games, maybe World Championships. Yeah. And the rest is all like, it's not what people think it is.
Yeah,
so
I don't think people quite understand, and even with the guys, like I know this is probably quite controversial, like people think that the guys are earning too much money, but if you look in the whole scheme of the world sports, like these guys are not earning nearly as much as what they could be. And I think that might rustle a few feathers, but it's like, you know, sports people across the world are earning billions of dollars. And it's like,
this is my argument. And everyone listening, I love AFL. This is not an argument. This is a genuine fact. When people say to me AFL is bigger than soccer, I'm like, whoever the top 5 biggest players are in the AFL, whatever they make, the top 5 in soccer will make in maybe 4 hours of the day.
Genuinely.
Like what they make in a year,
genuinely,
soccer players will make in a day.
Yeah.
Like some of them.
Yeah.
Like that's how crazy the difference is.
Yeah.
And I know because I'm used to that word. I'm like, people are getting like 100,000 on an average a week.
Yeah.
It's euros or pounds.
I don't know if it's an Australian thing, but I just find like, I'm not sure, but I'm like at the moment there's that pitting against each other with AFLW and AFL, and it's like, why is there this?
Is there
this? Yeah, like why? Really? Like this perception of like we're trying to take money from them, and like they should, like AFLW shouldn't exist because we're taking resources from them, and this whole thing, and it's like, why can't two things coexist? Like why does it have to be us against them?
Yeah,
it really doesn't. And honestly, if you speak to the players, they don't feel that way at all.
I've never spoke to anyone on both sides that have said that.
But it's very much, I from a fan's perspective, I think that AFLW clubs and things coming into the competition, I think they think it's going to negatively affect the men's game. But it's not like that. It's not so straightforward.
Not at all. Yeah, the Matildas is a really good example of that because I argue that at probably last year, they were our best performing national team across all codes. Like they were rated top 2 in the world. Now they get the same pay for the Matildas as the Socceroos do. As soon as they step foot on, it's like bang, big bank. Yeah. Like it's just crazy because they're so good. You can't deny it.
Yeah. They've done the work. Like if they're getting the eyeballs and if they're getting the revenue, it's like they've done the work to get the pay. Like
that's taken 20 years though.
Yeah.
Like honestly, 20 years. There's players that were in the same, like it takes so much time.
Yeah. I know.
But that's why it gives me hope, because I think AFL's like the biggest in the country from a sports perspective.
Yeah, it definitely does. But I think it's like that reality of like what I was saying is it might not happen in my career span, and that's okay. Like I'm totally fine as long as it does get there though, because that's for a code that's the national game. You need it to be represented
absolutely
across both. So for me, it's like once I'm done with the game, like that will be my focus. Whatever impact I have after that is like very much in making sure that the back end is done properly, because it needs to be sustainability. Yeah,
amazing. Well, we're gonna pick back up the footy chat because we have to go through some of your career, but a lot has happened since we've caught up last. You've become a parent.
First time.
You know what? 26 years old in the modern day is quite young for a parent now as well.
It is.
Like, so can you talk me through the whole experience of that and what's changed, I guess, in your life?
Like, I mean, I've always wanted to be a young parent though. It's like from really, really young. I think it's just because I didn't have an older parent, but my mum was 32 when she had me. And I just really wanted to just have the energy for my kids and be that parent that's like not sitting on the bench on their phone, but like is in the playground. And I always had that vision with me and my kids. Not saying my mum did that, but I'm just saying I see a lot of parents do that. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be the hands-on parent that actually gets involved and I wanted to do that quite young. And I think there's this perception of like your life stops when you have kids. And I'm sure it definitely changes, but I think that it's all your parenting style. Like if you make them a part of your life as opposed to stopping your life for theirs, I think there's a huge difference. It's the hardest thing. Wow. It's the hardest thing ever, but it's also the best thing ever.
Most rewarding.
Like it's like, people probably don't talk about how hard it actually is because you're responsible for.
Can you tell me what is exactly? Yeah, what is? Because I'm fucking horrified. I love kids, but I'm horrified of owning one myself.
Well, think about how hard it is to just focus on you to make sure you survive.
I can't look after myself.
Exactly.
Sometimes I skip breakfast. I'm like, I can't be fucked today. I can't do that with a kid.
Do you know what's funny though? Like with the skipping breakfast is like you may not feel like you want to eat breakfast, but like they have to eat.
They need it to grow.
So then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm not making breakfast for myself, but I'm making them breakfast. I might as well make breakfast for myself. But yeah, it's been so challenging, but like so rewarding. You don't realize how much time you waste. And like when you have kids, you realize how to operate just a lot quicker with your time. I think also like it's a good shedder in the sense of there are lots of people around you that you realize don't add value to your life.
What, when you have a kid?
Well, I think like it changes.
I would love to have a kid based off that.
I think just when you have children, you realize what's important and you realize like what actually doesn't matter. And I think it gives you that extra perspective of like, there are so many people around me that like they're more takers. They don't give anything. And you're like, I can't be a parent to you as well. And you realize that with having kids, it's like there is a lot of people and scenarios that you get involved in. You're like, I don't actually need to be here. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
what the fuck am I doing on this show?
No, trust me, if I didn't want to be here, I would not be here.
I believe you.
But like, it's just, your life changes when you have children because just real life stuff become important. Like really, like genuinely things like this morning, I literally spilled coffee all over me and I was like, that's so annoying. But I'm like, I can literally just put small clothes on, chuck it in the wash. But normally that would annoy me. Yeah. But I'm like, it doesn't even matter.
Oh my God.
And like that is such a small scenario.
That's a win in the day.
But like, that is just an example of my mindset change of just having kids of like, they get messy all the time. Yeah. And I don't complain about like just washing their clothes.
It becomes the norm.
Just becomes a norm. So it's been a real positive, for me and my wife having a little girl, and she's just so determined. It's not even funny.
Really? Do you see like an athlete brewing already?
Definitely.
Do you know what I was thinking then? Because how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
6 foot?
Yeah.
Which like, in male terms, 6 foot for a girl is like just 6'4".
Yeah.
Like you are so tall. You're taller than me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine taking your daughter to Auskick and like the other kids just seeing you roll in? Like,
it's nuts.
Your daughter's going to be a superstar.
It's interesting though because I see parts in her and I'm like, I don't know if you like. She does certain things. And I'm like, I don't know if a team sport would be your thing. Like she'll be around other kids.
Tennis.
She'll be tennis. She'll be the next Serena Williams. No, it's like she'll do certain things. Like she'll be around other babies and she'll be like so just determined to do it on her own. And I'm like, I see like more of a single sport person there.
That's fascinating.
Who knows? She might not even want to do sport.
Yeah.
She might want to be a leader of a company. Who knows what she wants to do? But
what's your partner's name as well?
Lily.
Lily. Shout out Lily because she's gone through hell and back, I'm sure, with raising it and obviously with you playing sport too. There's sometimes the unsung heroes, hey?
She is the I wouldn't even be
you wouldn't be able to play
without my wife.
You wouldn't be able to play football.
Because like for example, like she gave birth to Florence and 2 days later I had to fly to Sydney for a practice match.
Yeah.
Sprained my ankle, came back on crutches, couldn't do anything. And she just had to deal with it. And it's like, that is just one small scenario of our whole life together. She just had to pick up the slack and she never wants the recognition. It's like part of being in a partnership and a teamship, but she's a rock, man.
Oh man, we all need one, definitely. Have you always been gifted at sport? Have you always been naturally talented or have you had to really work hard at it? Because I think definitely from an athletic point of view, you're superior to a lot of girls on the field, like your strength, your height, which is such a huge asset in AFL. But
definitely strength was something I had to work on. Like if you actually saw a photo of me when I was really
strong
young,
on that field.
I've always been tall, but I was a twig. Like I had nothing on me. I actually didn't start like properly lifting until I got to the AFL. So that was only 6 years ago because I didn't really have that resource. Like it never was something that I thought was going to happen. So I didn't really have that around me of like, you should be lifting and you should be doing plyometrics and stuff like that. I never really did that. So definitely in terms of the strength component, that was something I had to work on. In terms of like, I guess, natural ability, I think I've always been gravitating to sports. Like I've always been able to just throw myself in. I love like the weirdest and wonderful sports. I love them
Give
all.
me the weirdest that you love.
Oh, just like darts I love. Like lawn bowls.
Lawn bowls. Is that just because you're competitive, you think, maybe?
Yeah.
That's probably why.
I'm competitive in everything.
Yeah, because I like doing that stuff too, but based off like I have to verse someone.
Win. Yeah. Maybe if I was doing it by myself, it wouldn't be
like not a hobby. Not a Sunday afternoon by myself.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've actually like started to like want to get into like pickleball because everyone is doing it.
What is pickleball?
Pickleball is like I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Pickleball? Do you know what that is? Yeah. What is it? How do you play it?
It's like a smaller version it's a more attainable version of tennis, is how I say.
Oh, I think I've seen this. Is that what it's called? Is it called paddle?
No, Jamie Foxx came out with a paddle product for this sport. Oh, so he's like bringing more awareness to what it actually is. What the fuck,
man? Where this world's going is so strange.
We should do a game.
Yeah, seriously. We'll vlog it. If I get beaten on it, it's not going on YouTube, which will probably happen.
But I've honestly, like, I've always loved sports. I did every sport under the sun as a kid, like basketball, cricket, swimming, literally everything, badminton, fencing, karate. Like I did everything. And like luckily my parents allowed me to do that much. I've always just been really active. But I'd say, that definitely, I definitely would have some natural ability. I think my mindset on sport has carried me a long way. Yeah, I've learned that as an adult.
So what led you to pursue AFL back when you did? Because, and when was that point? Because I assume obviously it's more prestigious now for girls to probably want to go after. It's got more runs on the board. It's been around for longer. Back then, it probably wasn't as big. It was very in its infant stages.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it probably stems back to like my childhood story of, I was born in the UK, moved to Australia, started at a new school and didn't know anyone. I didn't even know what AFL was. Like
you were like 7 or 8 at this point.
Yeah,
right?
7 or 8. And starting out at a new school, I was always really active. So I was sort of just watching the kids at recess and lunch and sort of trying to figure out how I can insert myself into making friends. And a lot of the kids were playing AFL, which at the time I actually thought was rugby. I had no idea. I didn't even know what the sport was.
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, how can I make friends? I'll just just throw myself in. They're like, do you know how to play? I'm like, yep, actually have no idea how to play. I'm just figuring it out on the go. And genuinely from that day on, I just kept on playing with the kids and fell in love with the game. Like I really, really enjoyed how, like I love the physicality of it. I love that you jump on people's backs. Like we used to play like King of the Pack and like all that stuff. And like I just fell in love with the whole sport and just the environment of school and making friends. And it wasn't until my PE teacher at my primary school actually like was watching us playing. He was like, you should play for the school team. Like you're actually really
back
good.
Then I bet you they didn't have a female team.
No, I was the first ever.
You played in the men's footy team.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I didn't think but the thing is coming from the UK where, soccer's everything.
Yeah.
And females are playing. I didn't know that there was a sport where females could or didn't play. So when he suggested joining the team, I was like,
sure, like it's normal.
Yeah, like, okay. And you're a kid, like you're so naive to all of that stuff. And so trialed out, like got into the team and we're playing the inter-school comps where you play other schools. And it wasn't until that point that I realized this isn't common because like the other parents would be like, whispering and saying like she shouldn't be here and shouldn't be playing.
Were they tackling at this age?
Yeah.
Oh, so because there's a period where it's like bumping only.
No, it was
so they were like, so it was
which I loved, by the way.
You imagine just ragdolling some blokes to the ground. Get up, boy.
I actually got MVP in my first year.
You did not.
Yeah.
What did you grow before some of the guys? Because sometimes females do grow before.
I think
boys do.
I was taller than some of the guys. Like some of them were built really young. Like,
yeah, okay.
But I was definitely taller than some of the guys. I actually played football for a year with Camden McIntosh from Richmond.
What?
We played for the same football team.
That's so strange.
Like for the same football club, and it's such a small world. But like I didn't really think much of it. I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely had the blinkers on, could care less about what people think. I mean, I'm still the same now.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to play the game and no one was really stopping me. And at that stage, AFLW wasn't even an idea.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it was just for the fun of it.
Hey guys, just a quick pause in this episode to let you know that I have partnered with Dabble this year. Share the experience. Now, Dabble is a online betting platform. It is absolutely unbelievable. Very similar to Instagram where you can follow people and copy their bets. Now, you guys may have seen me do some World Cup streams through the World Cup, talking about the World Cup, building bets, which we were very successful at. So we are going to be doing that every week from Tuesday nights, 7 to 8 on the Dabble YouTube platform. So come along. Let's talk about sport, football, whatever it may be, and build some multis that are going to get up. I'll be there 7 p.m. every Tuesday on the Dabble YouTube. Let's get back into the episode. When did AFLW become a reality in your mind of like, this is one, attainable, and two, it's actually what you have a passion for to go and do?
Yeah. I'd probably say it's probably 17 at the time because I was playing soccer alongside footy pretty much this whole time. It's always just, I played it from very young and I really loved it. So I always played it. I went to a high school that specialized in soccer. Like I'd been playing the whole way through. It was sort of gotten to the point now where I'm like, people are sort of, where are you going to take this? Are you going to go, to the US is a very common thing. Like, are you going to go over to the US? Are you going to go back home to England and play? And that was thrown up a fair bit.
So you played in like kind of decent level?
Yeah, I was playing all right. I think I had the talent, but thinking now, like the amount of drive and passion that you need to succeed at that level, I don't think it would have been I don't know if I would have gotten to that level because I didn't have that same drive for soccer as I do for football.
Oh, there you go.
So I think that even though I was all right, like I was obviously at a decent level, I don't know if I would have kept doing it. Like,
you
who
made
knows?
the right call then.
Who knows?
Because your head needs to be in it.
Yeah,
So,
and it's tough. So yeah, I was doing that alongside it, and it got to a point where so I just finished high school, and I like all my profile got sent out to everywhere, here, there, and everywhere, and like the Arsenal Academy and all this stuff. Long story short, very long story short, because this isn't about him, but my dad played for the Arsenal seconds team.
What?
Like, yeah, like
when
a long
was
time
this?
ago. Well, he's He's 60 now, so a long
in the
time
60s
ago.
and 70s?
Like when he was about my age.
Dude, Arsenal in the 60s and 70s were legit.
Yeah, like so he was in like, for people that don't know, he was in like the VFL equivalent, basically. The second team.
Fuck me.
So he knows people, and he wanted me to be in the Arsenal Academy from when I was young, and my mum wasn't having it. Anyway, so things like that were happening at that time, 17. What are you going to do? You're going to go over to England, or you're going to go down Dad's path, whatever. And then there was rumblings that like AFLW might be a thing, because they had those exhibition games. And I got the last exhibition game they did, I got asked to be a part of it, and I played for Melbourne when Melbourne and the Bulldogs were playing against each other. And at that stage, they were like, no, I think Gil's really pushing for this. Like, I think this is going to be a thing. And so I was like, okay, like this has just changed everything in my mind, because I love football. Like that was my inner drive. I would love to do this instead. So I kind of just put soccer on hold for a year, which wasn't, my dad was not that happy about. Yeah. And just right time at the right place, like right place at the right time. And I was 18 and AFLW became a thing.
Yeah.
And
so how long's the AFLW been around for now?
6 years.
So you've been here since inception?
Yeah. So
wow. So day one you were in a club.
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
So I was signed as a marquee player to Brisbane. So this was
at 18.
I was actually 17. I just turned 18. Yeah. So I got signed to Brisbane, but that was before the draft. So even before that. So I was probably one of 12, I think it was. So
across the league or just
yeah, across the league. So there was two. It was me and Taylor Harris that were signed to Brisbane. And there were two other clubs, but I think the clubs that like Sydney and stuff that might have needed more support, they had 4 that were originally signed. So I think there was about 12 all up at that point, because there was 8 clubs then. Yeah. So that was the inception. And then I think 6 months later is when the first draft actually happened.
Oh, wow. So you knew before you didn't even know who your teammates were for 6 months?
No,
I moved. That would have been weird.
Do you know what was so strange? I'd moved to Brisbane, never lived there, never been there.
So you had no choice. You had no power.
No. Well, they asked for me to play. I could have said no and played for, like I was in Perth at the time. I could have maybe signed for Fremantle at that stage. Yeah. But there was just something intriguing about
Brisbane.
Going to start something new. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, it doesn't work out and I can go home, sort of thing. So said yes to going to Brisbane. Literally never had been there. Never had been to Brisbane. Said yes to Brisbane. Didn't know who my teammates were going to be. All I knew was Taylor was my teammate. I knew the coach, Craig Sasovich, and the head of women's football at the time. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. And their vision for what they thought it was going to be. That's literally all I was signing up for, which in hindsight, I'm like, thank God I was young and like had no idea. Yeah. Because I had that naivety of just going, yep, all right, let's see how it goes.
Wow. So you've really grown with this league, like based off that sentence.
I'm a fossil.
You're a fossil at 26.
Yeah.
So can I ask, this is a bit of a tricky question, maybe tricky for you, but for me, I'm really interested. In the 6 years you've been in the league, what for you about yourself has changed the most from the start to now?
Yeah. Interesting.
Because obviously the league's grown from a player point of view and club point of view and so forth, but like individually, like has anything changed like for you? Because you came in so young into an unknown world.
Yeah. I mean, when you're young, you just think like the whole world revolves around you, you know? So I think that so I think like as a mindset, and like people would probably argue that my first couple of years were my best career years, which is so interesting because I'm like, I understand how that could be because I invested so much into my craft, but there was so much around me that was up in smoke. Like there was just so much that I didn't have a balance on, that like life balance, like just I didn't have that vision of like evolving the game. It was very much me at the time. So I can understand why in terms of ability on the ground, it would look like my first 2 years were insane because that's literally, I sold my soul for the game at that point, which served its purpose. But I think it got to a point where I realized like this this league is going to take a while to grow, and I am going to burn out if I keep going this way. And I'm going to lose my family, my friends, my sanity.
Career opportunities.
All for this when I'm getting paid like next to nothing. I know finances and everything.
How bad was the pay the first year? Was it like... like, is that you can't even say it bad? It
wasn't bad. I mean, after tax, like...
Oh, Jesus.
Maybe, like, you're probably lucky to take, like, 10 grand after tax. You're lucky. That's like being top of the tree.
So disrespectful. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's marquee
So,
status.
like, I think I understand how...
So girls were almost playing for free.
Yeah.
In short, like, let's summary.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you've got to balance that appreciation and being grateful and stuff, but definitely now I'm like, that was insane. And I think that I can appreciate that, yes, my career in terms of what people think, they might think that it's gone down or whatever, but I have evolved so much as a person, as a leader, as a teammate, like, for the sake of the club and the future, that it's not just about on-field performance. And I think that like realizing and knowing that where the sport is at, it was probably the best thing I ever did, because it was like, it might not be in my career span to be that player that can only focus on the craft. And that's okay, because I never thought I'd be here anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it was as soon as I made that switch into long-term thinking and having a bit more of a balance on things, not to a point where I'm like, I don't care about my craft, I don't care about footy. It's not that.
You're just respecting what the league's giving back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's
smart.
That was probably my biggest learning through that whole period, is like, there's just sometimes it's just not the right time.
Right. Without going into like specific players and yourself and so forth, would there be any girls that are getting six figures now? And if so, would there be many or no? Like not even.
I mean, it's sort of broken up into the sense.
Like, because I assume there's like my opinion, and this is the same in the A-League, which is why I know the best get a lot and the rest get nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the AFL and the AFLPA have done a good job in restricting that, because there's a tiered process.
Okay.
There's only so much you can actually.
It's like
the gap isn't that big.
Okay.
But... And what I always say with everything is, you've got your salary for being paid, and then there's like your ASA, which is like a marketing contract, which has nothing to do with your playing agreement. Right. So who knows what's in that? Okay. Who knows?
Yeah,
and also
that's how the business gets done.
But then also it's like, who knows what you're bringing in endorsement wise, and so in terms of playing alone, there would be no players that are bringing that money in.
Right. Okay.
But in terms of the whole package, there probably would be. Maybe 10, across the whole league.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
that's getting that.
Wow. I mean, that's improvement.
That's probably a push.
Yeah. Do you know what I've been impressed with? And I think you're definitely one of them, is like some of the top tier or more well-known players, the brands that they're attracting and they're associated with, like, are pretty like big.
I think
so. Like big brands and big businesses are actually attaching themselves to AFLW now, which is really cool.
I mean, it's definitely good for the game. It's huge for the game. I think there's definitely, especially a lot of these brands that have been involved in sports that haven't attached them to female athletes at all. I think it just branches off so much, because now you're appealing to a bigger demographic. I think there's a lot of pros on both ends. In terms of like the top tiered players, I think the difference isn't even necessarily being talent, because there are some players that, you know, would have won our best and fairest that might not be earning that much money. But I think maybe the difference is like understanding that you as an entity, you're a business, and it depends on who you associate with, who you get into business with, how you market yourself. There's so much that that is involved.
Some girls are just better than that than others.
I think so, but also your team, like who's around you? Who's the one speaking in your ear? Is someone telling you to take the short money, or are they telling you to take equity into a business? Like, it depends on the people that are around you, how much you know, how much you're willing to learn. There's so much that gets involved. I mean, I'm lucky that I was around my family who are business owners. I've always been thinking long term, or it's always been long term goal, not short term goal. I think I've been really lucky with that. But there are some people that, you know, a few $1,000s might be life-changing for them. And I understand that. So they're willing to just go for the short, quick option, but long-term that might not favor them. Yeah. So I think at the point now, it's like, I think maybe some of the girls need to get more into that mindset of like, I am a business entity. I provide more value than just being on the football field. What else do I provide to these clubs, to these brands? What can I leverage? Who can I get in conversation with? You know, the corporate lunches that we end up going to is insane.
They're the best to meet and greet.
But do you know how many athletes just sit there and don't actually network? Do you know how many people would pay to be in those rooms to network? People don't understand. Yeah. It's like crazy money to be a part of those events, to
especially
network.
Like a Collingwood too.
Exactly. And I think that,
insane.
But there are so many athletes that don't, I think they don't really understand the position they're in is like a unique one.
Yeah.
And how can you better leverage that for your future, not just like the here and now. So it's been interesting. I think you're saying like with branding and stuff and being like a fossil in the sport. I feel like to some people I may have not made an impact on the field, but I would like to think I've made way more of an impact off the field than I have on the ground. And I feel, to me, that's more legacy speaking.
Well, yeah.
To the next generation.
There's longevity in that too, because you can do that beyond your playing days too.
Exactly.
which is even more powerful.
Yeah.
And it's pretty powerful that you're there day one.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like if you were talking about...
I've seen all the
if you were talking about AFLW to me, I'm definitely listening because I know you were there day one and all through it. So like everything you're speaking of would hit home.
Yeah.
We obviously know you play for Brisbane and Richmond, but I do want to go into the now and just talk about the Collingwood experience because that's so is this second season now? Yeah. So I mean, it's not relatively fresh, but it's like somewhat fresh.
Yeah.
Can you just talk to me about, because we will have 100% people from Collingwood tuning into this.
Yeah.
You guys, I don't know what it is. We get Collingwood players on and I'm like, I've been adopted as like a member.
You're honorary member
I go
now.
for St Kilda, but because we never win shit.
That's
like,
okay.
I'll jump on board every now and then, you know, but I know there'll be Collingwood people listening and they love hearing stuff about the club and what it's actually like between the four walls. But can you just talk about the experience and maybe even the decision to what drove you to go there?
Yeah. I think Collingwood's just different. And the reason why I say that is because I know every other club is going to be like annoyed, but Collingwood's sort of like the Manchester United.
Yeah, it is.
Like they may not be the best on-field performance, but globally they're recognised as being the club. And Collingwood is that. Is like they're recognised as being like the AFL club. And I don't know how it got there.
So many people are going to be biting their like teeth
but
right now.
It is the truth.
I think it is
and,
too.
And I'm sure there are other clubs, like Richmond's doing a really good job in what they're doing. And there are other clubs branching into that level. But Collingwood's just different in the sense that like as soon as you walk into the club, you feel the magnitude of what you're about to get involved in. Like the people, the eyes that are on you, the financials in terms of who are invested in the clubs, the people that walk through the door. Like we literally, one of our last trainings, we had Shaq walking down literally while we're training. It's like, this is the type of people we're seeing. And it's like being involved with the club. It's just something different, you know? My decision to come to Collingwood was very much that when I decided to move from Brisbane to a Melbourne club, it was because I wanted to move to Melbourne for family reasons. I wanted to build my family here, so I ended up moving to Richmond.
Yep.
I think initially when you sign with a club and they have visions, you would know is like all it takes is a coach or a head of football or someone to come in and the whole thing changes, right? So initially it was how I felt was the right fit for me, and then personnel change, the culture changes, it wasn't the best fit for me. And it's nothing that's too severe. It just, I'm really big on it feeling right, and it didn't for me anymore. So it was sort of, okay, is this the end for my career or is it something that I can see, can I find that elsewhere? And Collingwood has always been a club I've watched from afar. Like I have a lot of friends that were a part of the club, playing for the club. I've always watched and I realised the last few years they've made a real change inside and out of the club. And it was just something I really wanted to be a part of. Again, coming back to the legacy piece, is like I feel like they're making a real change and they are leaving an impact, and I wanted to be a part of that. And So I started the conversations with the club, and a couple of my best friends played, and it sort of just felt organic. It felt so seamless. It sort of felt like, why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Like at this point. So yeah, ended up at Collingwood.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Biggest club. I think they're the biggest club in Australia in
It's
every
insane.
sport. I don't know, maybe Brisbane Broncos. I just
Yeah.
think Collingwood's the biggest.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of magnitude that comes with it.
And I hate saying that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, but it's just, you can't deny
No,
it. You cannot deny it.
And obviously on a business sense, like whoever's been leading the charge, like obviously Eddie in the past and now Jeff, like it's, they, as a business entity, they've done a really good job, not just as a football club.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to be around those people all the time.
Yeah. How did you rate this year's season personally and as a collective?
I mean, it was a weird one because we went back to back on a season we weren't expecting to happen.
Yeah.
And not to say we weren't pushing for results. Like we're all competitors, we all want to win. But I think we also had that understanding that we all weren't really mentally and physically prepared for it. So I think there was that understanding that we may not get to where we want to. But that's okay. We'll use it as a learning.
Yeah.
So it was sort of.
Was that frustrating though? Because like
it definitely
when you're like, for me, when I'm 26 and I'm Sabrina Frederick, like I don't want to fucking learn anymore.
Exactly. It's
Do you know what I
definitely
mean?
it's definitely frustrating because all you want to do as a competitor is win.
Yeah.
Like that's anyone that says otherwise is honestly
They're
lying.
taking the piss.
They're lying, and I hate it because I'm like, why? You're not here for a participation medal.
Yeah.
You want to win the big thing, and you never want to feel like a season was wasted or anything like that. And I feel like just after the last few years with COVID and all that stuff, it just was really frustrating to feel like we just got there again and just fell short at the finals again. It's like it definitely is very frustrating. And then on a personal note, it was like I was due to have a child. Like we were due to have a child when I wasn't playing, and then all of a sudden I'm playing. So I was dealing with that too, because it's like obviously my mindset is my family first.
Yeah, of course.
So I think on an individual front, it was frustrating because I felt like this was the year to like get back into things, but I'm really strong on morals in certain things, and the club were totally fine with it and understanding that like my family is everything, and I had to put them first. So it's sort of like, I think on an individual front, yes, I could have done a lot better. Definitely, I'd be the first to say I was not happy with how the season ended. Injuries happened. I didn't help out the team where I probably, like as a forward and kicking goals, like there's certain things that you want to be able to do to finish off the team's work, and I didn't. And I'll be the first to say that it's frustrating. You really to feel like you've let down the team, but I would like to think and hope that this next season I will make up for it tenfold.
Yeah, I think also with just your situation, I genuinely think like your off-field, the balance of off-field impacts on the field.
Yeah.
And for you, when you got a kid on the way, you're probably the first person I can actually ask this to. Can you totally focus on football when you know?
No.
I don't know how you could.
No, I mean, it definitely helps in the sense
It'd probably be more like a getaway than like, if anything, like
it's. I think as sports people, you learn to compartmentalize. So you do learn that when you're in it, you can just sort of like focus on what's in front of you. But that being said, say if something emotionally draining has happened all day, you are zapped. And like you have to find this within yourself to then compete against people in your team or compete with people in your team that they've had none of that.
Yeah, they've woken up at 10 a.m.
Exactly.
Like, do you know what I mean?
They're ready to rock and roll, and you're ready to give 100%. But then after you've drained yourself again, you're going back to then potentially you might only get an hour's sleep.
Yeah, you're cleaning up baby vomit and spilling coffees on yourself.
Like all sorts of stuff. So I think that it's like that knowing of like, I'm not really 100% there and I'm not really 100% here, which sucks.
That sucks.
Do you know what I mean?
In the abyss.
And I think unless you are a parent doing that, you don't understand. And I think that's partly why it was frustrating in a way, is because like only one of my teammates is a parent. So like a lot of them probably would have no idea that after training, they can go relax, go sleep. Like I may not sleep.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
I may not get to bed till 3 a.m. and that's obviously my choice to be a parent, but that's just a reality.
Yeah.
So it was tricky, to say the least.
Might be too soon to ask, but would you have another?
No, I would. But I would make sure it wasn't due right before the season was going to start.
New note to self. What's been the biggest change in the game? Like, is the quality, I assume the quality of football and the skill sets and athleticism, has a lot of that severely improved from day one to now?
Yeah, definitely. Even just knowing the girls that come through that are drafted, like, that you can see the 18, 19-year-olds, like, they've been playing the whole way through.
Some of them are fucking machines.
And you can see it. And I love that, by the way. I love the fact that they're coming in and they're racking it up and they're tearing it up. I mean, I'm a competitor. It gets me going. Yeah. But seeing them come through, I'm like, fucking good for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I think that's been a major change is in terms of, the quality of draftees coming in. That's then lifting the overall quality of the team. Because
there'll probably be girls that were like 12, 13, 14 now that are coming in the league that could
teammates.
train.
I have teammates that have like got photos with me. How shameful is this? And I like didn't even remember. And they've like shown me these photos and I'm like, this is so embarrassing.
You're not even that much older than them.
No,
probably.
I know. But it just like, it makes you realize, like, geez, I've been in here for a while.
Oh my God.
Because like these girls were like, 12, 13 or...
Well,
like,
they're training for it to get drafted then because there's something to do. Like when you're playing, you're like, I don't even know if there's a league.
Exactly. And even though the money per se is not at the level of being full-time, if you're a young kid who's still living at home, like that's some good money.
Yeah.
I think like any of their friends probably wouldn't be making that money anyway. So it almost does feel like full-time for them because they don't have overheads and things like that and they can just focus on their craft or whatever they want to do. And I have noticed a change in that respect of like their approach. They're so professional from the beginning. I love it. I really love the change. I think also another big thing is just clubs realizing that AFL is here to stay. Like AFLW is here to stay. Yeah. It's probably been the biggest change too. Is it's like not an add-on anymore. It's like an integration into what we're actually doing. Yeah.
I was going to ask because we've spoken about the pay, but like what would be... Are there big challenges that you face as a female athlete in the AFL? Because it's a very male-dominated environment.
Yeah.
It can be very egotistical. Like there's that testosterone vibe around AFL media and AFL players and stuff. Is there challenges with that for females?
I think, being at 3 different clubs, I've had 3 different experiences. I would say at Collingwood, it's actually the opposite because we have more females in the club now.
We've got netball too.
Because we've got netball. We actually have the majority. Now
taking back the power.
So it's actually been an interesting dynamic change going to Collingwood because a lot of the even admin side staff are females. So we actually probably have more females in there than we do males. Yeah. So I'd say like in that respect, I would say not so much. Like it's really very, very different. I think of the other two, like I think definitely when I was at Brisbane because it was the start. And we were almost like that annoying little sister that's coming in and grabbing attention from the parents. And I think there was a little bit of a dynamic shift within the 2 teams of them being like, what even is this? What is this? Yeah. Why are we sharing our facilities with these people? Yeah. Like, why are they getting attention? And at that point, like, the men's team were doing very good and we were smashing it out of the park.
Early years were
our first season, we went undefeated until the grand final.
That must hurt.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. It burns.
That must also hurt the men too. But that's a good thing. Is like you guys are lift like fuck. These girls are better than us.
Yeah, but I think like initially it was definitely a little bit of. I could tell the tension was there with those guys and like for so long it's just been their space and now they got to share it with us. Yeah. So there's probably a little bit. I don't know what it's like there now. But definitely initially there was a bit of what
divide.
are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like you're always gonna the men's game is it's been around for so long. There's always gonna be people that want us back in the kitchen or whatever.
Yeah, all that shit.
I always say all the time, I'm like, if you actually saw what my cooking was like, you would not want me in the kitchen. I am terrible.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, because speaking of like obviously you and Lily are new parents, but what's sort of interesting to me, I think I spoke to you about this before, is in the soccer world now, there's I think there's been 2 male players that have come out as gay, and it's like been like worldwide news. Like literally one of the guys in the A-League, I shouldn't say too much, but he's got like deals with like Tommy Hilfiger. Like it's so big that people are like good on you. From a female point of view, is it like more accepted that obviously people feel more comfortable being gay? Like is it even a thing in those environments?
Yeah, I think that it's always been.
It's like, still very much a thing in AFL, like for sure, right?
Like, I mean, like what you were saying with those 2 guys is like soccer's a world game. Yeah. And like these are like the 2 first people ever. Well, that have come out in a media platform and said, I'm gay. So like that's massive. Yes. Like, because you're not just talking about the one country, you're talking about all over the globe.
Dude, this kid in Adelaide did it. Yeah. Like Cristiano Ronaldo and stuff and like Real Madrid were tweeting, congratulations.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And like I think I'm just happy that the world's in a place where we can do that.
Yeah.
Because maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been that case. I think that we're now at a point that we're ready to be like, okay, like we're people, like just let them do what they want to do. I think in terms of AFLW and women's sport, I think it's been way more just integrated from the beginning.
I feel like, it's not a big thing.
No, I don't. It's not been a thing. I don't know if it's because like that stereotypical like, if a girl's playing a hardcore sport, they must be gay. Like that whole like.
I grew up with that stereotype in my head, which is so wrong.
It's not the case, but I wonder if because of that, it's like almost taken that of like, ooh, are they? Aren't they? It's sort of just it's okay right from the beginning. Like we don't care.
Yeah,
like we don't care, and I think it's nice to be involved in a sport that like genuinely just embraces you for who you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me, it was never really a thing.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you sort of realize or come out as if you were gay?
Yeah.
Have you always been like that, or was there a specific day and time you remember?
Yeah, it's so strange because like when I lived in the UK, I actually lived. They call it the gay capital of like England, which I didn't know.
What's it called?
Brighton.
Brighton. It's a great Premier League football team.
Yeah.
Not because everyone's happy there.
Yeah, probably. And it's so I've always like growing up, I was just always around diverse backgrounds and people just being comfortable in their own skin. Like that's very, very common where I grew up. So it never like when it came to a point where like I was growing up, I had like boyfriends and whatever, but when it got to a point where I was seeing a girl for the first time, it wasn't really a thing. Like I wouldn't even say I came out. It was genuinely just in conversation with, I remember like with my sister in her room being like, so who are you dating? Like as like just normal. And I'm like, oh, I'm just seeing this girl, blah, blah, blah.
It was that organic.
It was just, and I'm really lucky. Like, and it was just in passing and that was it really. And I think my sister told my parents and stuff, but it wasn't like a sit down chat. And, you know, I'm really, really lucky. And maybe it's because my mum and my dad went through their own situation with her being white and my dad being black. Like when they were dating, like there was still a bit of weirdness around like my mum dating a black guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like because they went through their own stuff. It was like, we don't care what our kids do as long as they're happy. And I was just really, really lucky that, it wasn't really a thing. And then it was just, I was just dating whoever I wanted to date. And then I got to AFLW and I was seeing a girl at the time. So it was just really seamless. Like it wasn't really a thing.
I feel like I've never heard an as organic and natural story
of that
as anyone.
I'm very lucky.
Like a lot of people I've had discussions with about it, and even Josh Cavallo, the guy who came out in Adelaide last year, I think it was. It was like a big, big, big thing.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, you're like, I just fucking woke up one day and said,
yeah. I mean, I always think that you have the power to add more or take the weight away. Like if you make an occasion, it's an occasion.
Right. So you don't, so you control the narrative.
And I'm very quiet. I am very quiet in a lot of things that I do. Like I am busy, but there is so many things that people don't know.
I didn't know you did that.
And I like, thing. I like that. I like, cause I'm like, I always say that like being braggadocious and being loud, normally the types of people that do that, they're actually not doing the work, or they're not like, I like to keep it on the wrap. So for me, it's like action based always.
Yeah.
I always lead with action. And I think that in terms of all of that stuff, it's like, well, if someone sees me out with a girl, then that's what it is. What it is. I don't have to explain myself to you, who I know nothing about.
Yeah,
like I've always just been like that my whole life with everything that I do. It's just do what I want to do.
That's amazing. I appreciate you talking about this because the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because I no doubt there's people listening that are, you know, swaying on the fence or talking about it, but don't like, would you hear it first from Sabs? Because you're in the limelight as well, like promoting the community, obviously the Pride game. There's so many things now that are being done that is promoting, I guess, everyone being themselves and equality, across all sports, which is...
I just preach on about just being a good human.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't care where you come from, what you do in your own backyard. I do not care as long as you're a good human being.
Do you know, my view is that, like, this might be contentious to some people, but, like, this whole gender and kind of, like, the sexual orientation that you are, like, you shouldn't need to announce one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm huge on that
like,
too.
You are just like, if you're a human being, then like everything else, it's a conversation that is so irrelevant. It's time wasted. Just do it.
It is time wasting.
Just do it. Like,
I know, like,
do you know what I mean?
It's a hard.
It's not to be disrespectful.
No.
It's just like,
I think that I think we're at a point now because there's there's a lot of brands and companies giving platforms to this. So people are wanting to like give themselves a title and stuff for the sake of being seen, which I understand the impact of it. But like, say for example, I came out and I said like, I'm a lesbian. Then I don't know, 10 years down the track, I'm seeing a guy. It's like, you then have to explain yourself on something you have no idea about anyway. Like every person has their own journey, and I don't really like you might have a girlfriend. I don't talk to you about the ins and outs of everything. I sort of see it as like, what would I talk to you about is what I should be fine to share. Otherwise, it's like my private relationship. Me and my wife, it's me, it's our marriage. Like, it's our family, it's our stuff. Like, I don't feel like everyone needs to know everything about everything.
I completely agree. I feel like it's harder for you than, say, me, because you're in the limelight. Yeah. And people want to know.
Sure,
do you know what I mean?
It's the give and take of knowing that you have a platform, so you want to use it to help people, but also you've got to understand that it's still your life, and you still, like, there are so many people that they share everything at a detriment to their own life, and it's like, you need to think of you first, and then if you can help, that's great. If you can give bits and pieces, that is great, but like, giving everything to everyone and then being left as a shell, I learned that early doors. Like, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Well, appreciate that for sharing. Hopefully that helps some people listening as well, because it definitely is very insightful. Now, some people obviously will know you from the football field, but others will also know you from some of the work you've done outside footy, particularly on SAS or so forth like that. I want to go back to that experience because I think I might have met you just after it.
Yes.
And I never really got to ask you what that was like.
Bit of a blur.
Because I've been around a couple of people that have that background of late, and they fucking fascinate me because I'm like, it is the skill set, the intensity, all that stuff, like the training they've gone through. What was that experience like for you? And how did that come about? Was that something you went searching for, or?
Amazing, like once in a lifetime opportunity. My mum used to be in the British military, so that sort of
your family's elite. You got an Arsenal dad, your mum's in the military. No wonder you are the way you are.
I see them as like the reason why I am why I am is because they're like pocket knives. That's how I see them. Is like, you just never know what is going to pop out, and I love it. But yeah, mum used to be in the British military when she was younger. And so I've always had that sort of insight and like sort of what the intrigue to get a little bit closer to her world of what it was like. Like, I remember her telling me stories of like putting guns together like in the dark. And I've always been fascinated by that world.
Wow.
So when the opportunity for this came up, I was like, this is the top of the top. Like these like special forces are like the top tier teams you never hear about. They deal with the top priority stuff in the world, and you'll never know who they are. And like, that is so intriguing to me.
That's intriguing as hell to me as well.
And it takes a type of person to get there. And how it sort of came about was they did the UK series a few years before, which I watched a bit on because my family are English and they love it. So I watched a bit of it. And they were I think it was just before the first lockdown happened or the second lockdown happened here in Melbourne, where they were filming in New Zealand, and they asked if I could do it, and I said no because of football at the time. And they actually went to New Zealand, and I think they had shot like 1 day of production and then got shut down because of COVID and everything.
Oh, wow.
So then 5 months later, everything gets revamped, like rebooted, and they're like, so we've got the cast, we've got the original cast because of everything that's going on, but would you consider coming on as like a backup? Like if someone got injured or someone got like COVID, that you would slot right in. And this was 3 weeks before they're about to film.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, do you know what? Fine. Yeah. Like if my club, and at the time it was Richmond, I don't know how they let me do this, but I was like, if they let me do it, then I'll do it because this is like amazing. So I went to the club. They said yes. They said it was an amazing like opportunity, which I'm so thankful to them because I didn't have to let me do that.
It's good for the AFLW. Like,
yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
huge.
Like, more faces getting out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they said, yeah, that's amazing. I had to keep it really hush-hush. Like no one could know. It was literally one person at Richmond that knew, and then like my family. But then like there was still a chance I wasn't going to go on this thing. It was just like as a backup, basically. Then we went into a snap lockdown. And they were like, okay, so we're filming in the Snowy Mountains in a few weeks, but because of all the COVID stuff, we need you to come to Sydney because you need to do 14 days quarantine if we need you.
So you could do 14 days quarantine and not get used at this point.
So at this point. And then they were like, to throw in things and make it a little bit harder is we actually need you to drive over the border because we can't, the flights are limited. So they were like, well, get you a rental car. I had to drive 9 hours.
Oh.
Then when I got there, I was thrown straight into like a lodge and had to quarantine for 14 days.
That's awful.
By myself.
And then potentially, right, at this point, going to the hardest training of your life.
11 days out, 11 days of quarantine, still didn't know if I was going to be on this show.
But also post that, like did they give you stuff to keep fit?
Well, they literally just said like, you will probably want to get into like running with weight because you'll be doing a lot of that. That's pretty much all they said. Right?
Fuck, that's horrific.
So I'm in this this apartment thing, small apartment, and they were kind enough to give me a treadmill.
Okay.
Because of training anyway. I needed to keep fit and some weight. So I pretty much did that, just kept on the lowdown. Meanwhile, none of my friends fucking know I'm doing this.
Because you can't tell them, can you?
No. So I'm just chatting to my teammates.
Did you know who else was going to be on the show at this point?
I knew a couple.
Okay, but like just by your relationships with them, or that got blurted out?
No, I think it got leaked, a couple of them already. Okay. Yeah, so I knew a couple of them before because of that. But yeah, so then I was doing all that. Then, so did my test 11 days, that said that was all fine. Then day 12, so I get out 14. Day 12, I get a knock on the door and I'm like, what is going on? It's the executive producer of the show who never speaks to anyone, apparently. He's decided to come down to my door because he said he was so impressed by everything that I've done this far that they're just going to add me on as an extra.
Well, yeah, rightly so. Shout out to him because that's
and apparently, like the casting agent was like, "This girl's going to win it."
That's some SAS mentality shit already, isn't it? Actually,
he was like, "Yeah, we'll chuck you in. The only thing we'll need you to do is like because everyone else is ready to go on the show, we're going to need you to do the full, like they do overlay footage and stuff. You're going to have to do a full day of filming. So as soon as you come out, like you've got straight into that, and you're going to have to do your safety course."
Were you nervous at this point, like for what's ahead? Because like fucking SAS training's not like, and I've seen that TV show.
Yeah, do you know what? I was
pretty hard to fake that shit. That stuff's real.
I think I was more excited because I didn't think I was going to get given the opportunity.
A bit twisted. You have to be a bit twisted to be excited for that. I'd be fucking nervous.
Like, I knew the context of the show in the sense of like, if you wanted to leave any point, you can leave any point.
There was literally a scene on one show where it was like Barry Hall and someone, it's like, pick who you want to fight. And they just squared off with helmets on. I'm like, what is this reality TV? Or is this
a bit of controversy?
Like, do you know what I mean with that? Like, you're looking forward to that shit.
Yeah, I know. I am a bit twisted, but it was such an opportunity, like life change. Like, no one, unless you're in the special forces, you do not get this level of training, like ever. You do not get exposed to the sort of stuff that they have provided. So I was like, even if it's the suckiest thing ever, like day one, we jumped out of a helicopter backwards. I would never do that ever. Like, when would I get that opportunity to do that? Like, I wouldn't. So I kind of saw it as more of like, this is an amazing opportunity, and I was excited for it. Did my overlay, did the safety course, and then literally got thrown in for 2 hours meeting the rest of the car. So I met the rest of the rest of
who was
the
some of the notable people on that one?
So Honey Badger was on that one, but had a bit of a controversy.
Gets you with a mortgage, yep.
Honey Badger, Merrick Watts, Shayna Jack, Jackson Warren.
Was Jackson Warren on there? That's crazy. Was Mickey on this one? Zarafa?
No,
he was later. I do remember which one, everyone. But
Candace Warren. Like, there were so many people I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were great people.
It would have been cool to be around that.
Oh, it was such an experience because everyone's here for different reasons, you know. And we were the first. This is the first time, so no one really knew what to expect. Met them, and then I just remember like eating with them, and then all of a sudden, like, it goes dark and these guys are yelling. So none of this is on TV, but they start the experience, like they bag us, like gas is thrown, like all this stuff that was never shown on TV that from the beginning. We're just chatting like we're chatting now. The doors slam open and there's just gas thrown. So it's a
real thing, this show. It's not like...
No, I say this to people all the time, like, this is a real experience. There's not a producer like chatting your ear. I mean, I don't know what it is now, but definitely wasn't when I was on the show.
Wow.
And they bagged us. We're in what we were wearing. They bagged us and we're off. We're gone. We started.
Wow.
So it was definitely one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Just on this before we round that up, what was the biggest thing you got out of that, like, for you?
I think because I've been around team sports my whole life, I think I've not really gone to the dark depths of knowing what I'm capable of, because I think in team sports you rely on so many people, and I think that experience gave me more of a nod to my self-belief and inner mindset and strength of like, I am capable of doing so many things when it's just me and my back's against the wall. I think that was a huge takeaway that I had from there that I've just never had the chance to really tap into. And also just that there's so much it doesn't matter.
Yeah, again.
When you're in that sort of bubble, you just realize there's just so much that's important. And it feels so real when you're in there. Like, it actually feels like you are in the military going out and you might not return home. Like, it feels so real that it just gives you perspective on like, it just gives you perspective on life and what you want to achieve, and realize like there's so much you can go out and do. That was probably my biggest takeaway.
Did you come out of there with like more confidence as well?
Definitely.
Because I feel like that would be one thing. Like,
definitely.
Who else has done what I've just done?
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time. Like, even if I completed the course, but even if I didn't, say if I tapped out, even day 3, like the things that you get to experience, I genuinely still think I would have walked out of there with confidence of like knowing this is what I've still got lots of work to do, and I've taken so much from the experience. I think that genuinely, even if you spend a couple of days in that environment, you just know it's so brutal and it's so exposing that it's hard not to learn something. It's really hard to not take something away from it.
Sounds very special. I'm fascinated by SAS.
Yeah.
Like, the people, like, because we walk down the street going to buy like something from the grocery store. I could be walking past like a cold hard killer and you won't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that fascinates me.
Yeah.
Who are those people in this
world? And even
world?
like those people, like even the people around them, because the identity stuff is so on lock. Like, they might have friends that don't even know what they do.
Well,
like, it is that.
Correct. Social media, like, all
whilst
these
they're
things.
in it is so locked
real.
up.
Yeah, correct.
So it's amazing. And those guys, like Ant is one of them, like all of them, but like Ant's a real, he's a G, man.
Is he?
Like, they're the best, such great guys. Like, even like they're yelling at us and stuff, but like I've gotten to know them on a personal level since then, and they're just such
Top
good
people.
guys.
Yeah, they played their role well.
Yeah.
And the enforcers as such.
Yeah.
Just to take a spin on this before we round this out, because I think we'll have hopefully have a lot of young girls out here listening to this episode that look up to you and obviously the AFLW and Genu. But what would be the best advice you can give to some of these young girls that are aspiring to be a Sabrina Fredericks or play in the AFLW?
That's a good question.
It is we tend to come up with some on the show from time to time.
There's so much, but I think in terms of like if they're aspiring to be a sports person, I think that I think you've got to be comfortable like being in that dark place, because there are going to be so many times where you do not want to do stuff, and it's actually the discipline that you've got to harness. It's got nothing to do with motivation. Like that genuinely comes and goes. External noise, like people can say good things about you one day and trash you the next, and it's very much like being comfortable with in yourself, knowing your why of why you're actually doing it. Like, are you doing this for external reasons? Because you will not you won't succeed. Like you really got to be internally motivated, internally disciplined. Just realize that, you know, it is going to be very much a self-discovery journey. It's about you. It's about like getting the most out of you and how can you leave an impression on the people around you. And there's going to be so many people. This is probably my biggest lesson that I've learned genuinely in 10 years is it is okay to be misunderstood. There are so many people that are not going to understand you. There's going to be so many people that are not going to see it the way that you see it. But as long as you're okay and you can wake up every single day and be okay with who you are, what you represent, what you do, that is literally the only thing that matters.
That is some of the best advice we've had on the show. That is outstanding.
It's genuinely my biggest thing, because there are so many things I say no to, or, you know, there are lots of people that probably think a certain way about me or whatever, good, bad, but that should not determine how I operate in the world. You can't make everybody happy. You really, really can't.
You shouldn't try to either.
And especially in sports, is like you might have your best, like Jordan's been on this podcast, like he's a prime example of that. The amount of people that think a perception of who he actually is. If he lived his life the way that people think of him, he'd be straight in a ditch, because it's like you just can't make everyone happy, and you can't make everyone think the way you want them to think, and you just need to be okay with being misunderstood. That's on them, not on you.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful advice.
Yeah.
This one's going to be interesting because this one's a bit more on you, and this is how we round up the show. We've been doing this question for a while, so all the listeners that have been coming back will know this one. But we attest sort of 3 traits on the Unlaced to being successful as an athlete in business, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I just want you to pick one of the 3 that resonates with you most for your journey. So it's out of resilience, drive, or ambition. Like which one? Obviously, all 3 we know are important. But which one for you was really pivotal in your journey?
Resilience, for sure.
Resilience.
Yeah. There's just going to be there's been so many times where, you know, you get kicked down, and it's genuinely, like, it's so cliche, but it's genuinely not about the fall. It's genuinely what you do afterwards. Like, how do you respond to adversity? It's always that. There's always another chance. There's always a chance to reinvent. There's always a chance to go again. And resilience is huge. Yeah.
Oh, beautifully said. I'm excited for the season for you this
me
year.
too.
I feel like you've got, for all you've done in the league, for some reason you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder this year.
Yeah, I know. I'd actually like to win.
I'm like, I'm fucking coming back. I was like, oh shit. So I'm excited for that. That excites me with you because...
Yeah, I'm excited too, genuinely excited. I think I'm really optimistic about the season, knowing that I have a bit more time as well. But I'm just in a good place, in a good season of life. So can't wait.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for finally coming on this show. We finally got here. You're a superstar, Sabs. I love you. So
thanks, Jake.
Good luck for the year.
Legend. Thanks,
awesome.
mate.